What happens when a music legend sits down for what should be a celebration of her legacy, only to face disrespect on live television? It only took one dismissive comment about her career for the entire interview to spiral into one of the most uncomfortable moments in morning television history. The studio lights were bright that morning, almost blinding as they reflected off the polished desk where Savannah Guthrie sat, shuffling through her note cards with a smile that seemed practiced rather than genuine. Across from her, Chaka settled into her chair, radiant in a flowing outfit that matched her legendary status. She had been in this business for over 50 years, and morning shows were nothing new to her, but something felt different today. Hoda Kotb sat to Savannah's left, already smiling warmly at their guest. Al Roker stood nearby, having just finished the weather segment, lingering to catch the interview with the icon. Craig Melvin occupied the chair on the far end, his usual easygoing demeanor present as cameras prepared to roll. "We are so excited to have you here," Savannah began, her voice carrying that peculiar tone of manufactured enthusiasm that longtime viewers had come to recognize. "Chaka Khan, the queen of funk herself. Everyone." The audience applauded. Chaka smiled graciously, nodding her appreciation. "Thank you for having me," Chaka responded, her voice smooth and warm. "So," Savannah continued, glancing at her cards, "you have been in the music industry for, a very long time now." She let out a small laugh. "How does it feel to still be, somewhat relevant in today's music scene?" The air in the studio seemed to shift. Hoda's smile faltered for just a moment. Al Roker's eyebrows raised slightly. Craig looked down at his own notes, seemingly uncomfortable. Chaka's expression remained composed, though her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "Somewhat relevant," she repeated, her tone measured. "Well, you know what I mean," Savannah said, waving her hand dismissively. "The music industry has changed so much. There are so many new artists now. TikTok stars, streaming sensations. It must be hard to keep up at your age." "At my age," Chaka said slowly, each word deliberate. Hoda jumped in, clearly trying to redirect. "What Savannah means is that you have had such an incredible, enduring career. Your influence on modern music is undeniable." "Is that what she meant?" Chaka asked, her gaze still fixed on Savannah. "Because it sounded like she was suggesting I am past my prime." Savannah laughed, but it came out forced and awkward. No, I am just saying that the industry is so different now. I mean, when was your last hit?" "I am genuinely asking, because I cannot remember." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crew seemed to freeze. Al Roker shifted his weight, looking like he wanted to be anywhere but there. Craig Melvin's eyes went wide. "You cannot." "Remember," Chaka said, her voice calm but carrying an edge that anyone paying attention could detect. "Perhaps you should do your research before interviewing guests." "I did my research," Savannah shot back, her smile tightening. "I have your whole career right here in my notes. I am every woman. I feel for you. All those oldies but goodies. I just think it is interesting how some artists manage to stay in the spotlight, while others, fade into the background." "Fade into the background," Chaka repeated, sitting up straighter. "Is that what you think I have done?" Hoda tried again, her voice bright with forced cheerfulness. "Chaka, tell us about your upcoming project. I heard you have been working on something really special." But Savannah was not finished. "I mean, let us be honest. When was the last time you had a #1 hit? The 80s? The 90s? Young people today probably do not even know who you are." "Savannah," Craig interjected, his voice carrying a warning tone. "What?" Savannah asked, looking around at her co-hosts with exaggerated innocence. "I am just being real. Is that not what journalism is about? Asking the tough questions?" Chaka's jaw tightened, but when she spoke, her voice remained steady. "There is a difference between asking tough questions and being disrespectful. I have won 10 Grammy Awards. I have influenced generations of artists. Whitney Houston, Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, they have all cited me as an inspiration. My music has been sampled by countless hip-hop and pop artists. But you sit here and suggest I am irrelevant? I did not say irrelevant, Savannah countered, though her tone suggested otherwise. I said the industry has changed, and maybe, just maybe, your time has passed. It happens to everyone eventually, even legends. Al Roker finally spoke up. Okay, I think we should maybe take this in a different direction. But the damage was done. Chaka looked at Savannah with an expression that mixed disappointment and resolve. You know what is fascinating to me? I have been interviewed by journalists all over the world, respected outlets, people who actually appreciate artistry and legacy. And yet, here I sit on a morning show being talked down to by someone who clearly did not prepare for this conversation beyond reading a few bullet points. Excuse me? Savannah's voice rose, her professional veneer cracking. I am one of the most respected journalists in this country. I have interviewed presidents, world leaders, and yet you cannot show basic respect to a music legend sitting 3 feet away from you, Chaka interrupted, her voice rising to match Savannah's. Do you speak to all your guests this way, or is it just the ones you deem past their expiration date? Hoda put her hand on Savannah's arm, trying to calm the situation. Ladies, please, let us just take a breath here. Savannah shook off Hoda's hand. I am not going to sit here and be lectured about journalism by a singer. A singer, Chaka said, letting out a breath that was almost a laugh, but without any humor. A singer. As if what I do, what I have done for 5 decades, is somehow less valuable than what you do. I did not say that, Savannah insisted. You did not have to, Chaka replied. Your tone, your questions, your entire attitude since I sat down has made it abundantly clear what you think of me. Craig leaned forward. Chaka, we really do appreciate you being here. Your career has been absolutely incredible and... Save it, Chaka said, though not unkindly to Craig. Her issue was clearly with Savannah. I appreciate you trying to smooth this over, but I know condescension when I hear it. Savannah rolled her eyes, and that gesture seemed to be the final straw. Did you just roll your eyes at me? Chaka asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Maybe I did, Savannah said, her professionalism completely abandoned now. Because frankly, I am tired of has-been artists coming on this show and acting like they are still at the top of their game. The music industry has moved on. Your style of music is not what people want to hear anymore. It is outdated. You are outdated. The studio went completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed shocked. Hoda's mouth fell open. Al Roker looked like he had just witnessed a car crash. Craig put his head in his hands. Chaka stood up slowly, her microphone still attached. Outdated, she said, her voice trembling with controlled anger. You think soul music, funk music, real music made with real instruments and real emotion is outdated? I think the numbers speak for themselves, Savannah said, also standing now. When was the last time you sold out an arena? When was the last time you were trending on social media? When was the last time anyone under the age of 40 knew who you were without having to Google you? Savannah, stop, Hoda pleaded, standing between them. But Savannah continued, seemingly unable to stop herself. I am just saying what everyone is thinking. These legacy artists come on the show expecting us to bow down to them, to treat them like royalty, when the reality is that most of our viewers probably changed the channel the moment they saw who our guest was. Chaka's hands were shaking now, but her voice remained powerful. You know what the real problem is? You do not respect the foundation that artists like me built. Every pop star you fawn over, every viral sensation you dedicate segments to, they are standing on the shoulders of artists like me. We paved the way. We fought for creative freedom. We pushed boundaries. We made music that mattered, that meant something, that changed lives. And now you are living in the past, Savannah shot back, clinging to glory days that younger generations do not care about. That's enough, Al Roker said firmly, stepping forward. Savannah, you are out of line. Am I? Savannah asked, looking at her co-host with surprise. Or am I the only one brave enough to say what needs to be said? Chaka began removing her microphone, her movements deliberate and calm despite the emotion evident on her face. I have been disrespected before. I have faced racism, sexism, ageism, every ism you can think of in this industry. But I have never, in 50 plus years, been treated with such blatant disrespect on what is supposed to be a friendly morning show. If you cannot handle honest questions, maybe you should not do interviews, Savannah said, her arms crossed. Chaka placed her microphone on the chair and looked directly at Savannah. There's nothing honest about what you have done here today. You ambushed me. You came into this with an agenda, to make me look washed up, to make yourself look edgy and tough. But all you have done is show everyone watching what kind of person you really are. And what kind of person is that? Savannah demanded. The kind who tears down legends to make yourself feel important, Chaka said quietly. The kind who mistakes cruelty for candor. The kind who will one day be sitting where I am, wondering why the next generation treats you with the same dismissiveness you are showing me right now. Hoda had tears in her eyes. Chaka, please, do not go. We can start over. We can... No, Chaka said gently to Hoda. We cannot. Some things, once said, cannot be unsaid. Some disrespect cannot be smoothed over with a commercial break and a fake apology. Craig stood up. For what it is worth, I think you are absolutely right, and I am sorry this happened. Chaka nodded at him appreciatively, then looked at Al, who also nodded his support. Finally, her gaze returned to Savannah, who stood with her jaw set, refusing to back down even now. You know what the saddest part of all this is? Chaka asked, her voice softer now. I came here excited to talk about my new music, my new projects. I came here ready to share stories, to connect with your audience, to maybe inspire some young person watching who dreams of a music career. But instead, you turned this into a confrontation. You made it about ego and relevance and numbers. Music is a business, Savannah said coldly. Numbers matter. Music is art, Chaka corrected. And art is not measured by streaming numbers or social media followers. Art is measured by impact, by influence, by the lives it touches and changes. My music has done that. My music continues to do that. And it will do that long after your morning show is canceled and forgotten. Savannah's face flushed red. Get out, she said, her voice shaking with anger. If you are going to insult this show, then get out. Oh, I am leaving, Chaka said, already walking toward the exit. But not because you told me to. I am leaving because I have too much self-respect to sit here and be degraded for your entertainment. You are making a huge mistake, Savannah called after her. Walking off a major network show. Do you know how this will look? Chaka paused at the edge of the set and turned back one last time. It will look like a woman who knows her worth. It will look like an artist who refuses to be diminished. It will look like exactly what it is. Someone walking away from toxicity and disrespect. This is ridiculous, Savannah muttered, but her voice lacked conviction now. She could see the way her co-hosts were looking at her, the way the crew had gone silent, the way even the producers in the control room were likely panicking. Hoda reached out toward Chaka. Please, just give us one more minute. We can fix this. But Chaka shook her head. Some things are broken beyond fixing. This is one of them. Al Roker walked over to Chaka, extending his hand. It was an honor to meet you, even under these circumstances. I am a huge fan. Always have been. Chaka shook his hand warmly. Thank you. That means more than you know. Craig came over as well. My mom loves your music. She's going to be so upset when she hears about this. Tell your mom I appreciate her support, Chaka said with a genuine smile. Tell her the music is not going anywhere, no matter what anyone says. Savannah stood alone at the desk now, watching as her co-hosts essentially sided with the guest over her. Are you all serious right now? She is the one walking off. She is the one who could not handle a little pushback. A little pushback? Al said, turning to look at Savannah with disbelief. You called her outdated. You questioned her relevance. You basically told her she did not matter anymore. That was not pushback. That was an attack. I was doing my job, Savannah insisted. Your job is to interview guests, not insult them, Craig added. Chaka watched this exchange for a moment, then spoke one final time. You all have a choice to make. You can continue working in an environment where this kind of behavior is acceptable, or you can demand better. For yourselves and for your guests. With that, she walked off the set, her head held high, her dignity intact despite everything that had just transpired. Savannah stood there, surrounded by co-hosts who were clearly disappointed in her, in front of cameras that had captured every moment of the disaster, and for the first time, she seemed to realize the gravity of what had just happened. We are going to commercial, she said, weakly, and somewhere in the control room, someone mercifully cut the feed. But the damage was already done. The interview that was supposed to celebrate a legend had turned into a masterclass in how not to treat a guest. And as Chaka Khan walked out of that studio, she carried with her the respect and admiration of everyone who had witnessed what happened. Everyone except the one person who should have shown it from the beginning. The set remained in stunned silence. Hoda sat down heavily in her chair, putting her face in her hands. Al shook his head slowly, disappointment etched across his features. Craig looked at Savannah with an expression that mixed confusion and frustration. What just happened? Hoda finally asked, though it was not really a question that needed answering. Everyone knew exactly what had happened. Savannah tried to regain some composure. She overreacted. I was just asking legitimate questions about her career. Legitimate questions? Al repeated, his voice rising. You basically told a 10-time Grammy winner that nobody cares about her anymore. How is that legitimate? The truth hurts sometimes, Savannah said, but even she did not sound convinced by her own words anymore. That was not truth, Craig said quietly. That was cruelty disguised as honesty. There is a difference. A producer's voice came through their earpieces, frantic and urgent. They could hear the panic, the scrambling to figure out how to fill the remaining time, how to explain what viewers had just witnessed. Savannah touched her earpiece. I understand. Yes. Okay. She looked at her co-hosts. They want us to address what happened when we come back from commercial. Address it how? Hoda asked, her voice tired. What are you going to say, Savannah? That you are sorry? Are you? Savannah opened her mouth, then closed it again. The question hung in the air, unanswered. That woman has inspired millions of people, Al said, his voice heavy with emotion. She has broken barriers, won awards, created timeless music, and you treated her like she was nothing, like her accomplishments meant nothing. I did not... Savannah started, but Craig cut her off. Yes, you did. We all heard it. America heard it. You dismissed her, belittled her, and when she stood up for herself, you kicked her off the show. She walked off on her own, Savannah protested. After you told her to get out, Hoda reminded her. You literally told her to leave. Savannah sank into her chair. For the first time, the reality of the situation seemed to be setting in. Her face had gone pale, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. 30 seconds, a stage manager called out. The four hosts sat there, none of them quite sure how to come back from what had just happened. The easy banter, the friendly atmosphere that usually characterized their show, had evaporated, replaced by tension and regret. "What do we say?" Hoda asked quietly. Nobody had an answer. Somewhere outside the studio, Chaka Khan was probably already in a car, heading away from Rockefeller Center, away from the disaster that the interview had become. But her words lingered in the studio, hanging over the hosts like a cloud. "She was right, you know," Craig said suddenly. "About everything. We do take these artists for granted. We do forget that they built the foundation for everything that comes after." Al nodded. "My daughter listens to all these new artists, and I always tell her, if you want to understand where that sound came from, you have to go back. You have to listen to Chaka, to Aretha, to Stevie, to all the legends. They are not irrelevant. They are essential." 10 seconds, the stage manager announced. Savannah took a deep breath. Whatever she was feeling, she buried it beneath her professional mask. But her co-hosts could see the cracks, could see that something had shifted, that something had broken that might not be easily repaired. Before the cameras came back on, Hoda leaned over and whispered urgently, "You need to apologize when we come back. You need to own this." "Apologize for what?" Savannah whispered back, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "For being honest? For being cruel," Al corrected from across the desk. "There is a difference, and you crossed that line about 5 minutes ago." 5 seconds, came the call. Craig shifted in his seat uncomfortably. "Just, please, let one of us handle this." But Savannah shook her head. "It is my interview. I will handle it." The red light on the camera blinked on, and they were live again, facing millions of viewers who had just watched one of the most uncomfortable moments in morning television history. Savannah's smile was strained as she looked directly into the camera. "Well, that was certainly unexpected. Our guest, Chaka Khan, has decided to leave the interview early." "Decided to leave?" Hoda interjected, unable to stay quiet. "Savannah, that is not exactly what happened." Savannah shot her a look. "She walked off the set, Hoda. That is exactly what happened. After you questioned her entire legacy and told her she was outdated," Craig added, his voice firm. "Let us be clear about that." The tension was still thick, even with the commercial break having provided a momentary pause. Savannah's jaw tightened. "I asked tough questions. That is what journalists do." "No," Al said, leaning forward. "What you did was disrespect a legend. There is a difference between tough questions and personal attacks. You crossed a line." Viewers at home were watching something rarely seen on morning television. The hosts turning on each other. The carefully maintained illusion of harmony shattered completely. "I cannot believe you are all taking her side," Savannah said, her voice rising again, despite being live on air. "She came on the show with an attitude from the start." "That is not true," Hoda said firmly. "She came on this show ready to talk about her music, her legacy, her new projects. You are the one who came in with an agenda." "An agenda?" Savannah repeated. "I had questions. Real questions about her relevance in today's music industry." "And you asked them in the most condescending way possible," Craig said. "You could have had a real conversation about how music has evolved, about her influence on modern artists. Instead, you made it personal." Savannah looked around at her co-hosts, seeming to realize for the first time that she was completely alone in her position. "So what? I am supposed to pretend that legacy artists are still as popular as they were 30 years ago. I am supposed to lie." "You are supposed to show respect," Al said, his voice carrying a weight that silenced everyone for a moment. "Chaka Khan has earned that. 10 Grammy Awards, 5 decades in music, influencing everyone from Whitney Houston to Beyoncé. She has earned basic respect, and you did not give it to her." "I respected her enough to be honest," Savannah insisted, but her voice was weaker now. "Honesty without kindness is just cruelty," Hoda said softly, "and that is what we all just witnessed." The control room was surely in chaos, wondering whether to cut away, whether to go to commercial again, whether to salvage what was left of the show. But the hosts kept talking, kept confronting the issue that had just exploded on live television. You know what bothers me most about this? Craig asked, looking directly at Savannah. It is not just that you disrespected Chaka Khan. It is that you disrespected everything she represents. The struggle, the artistry, the foundation that she and artists like her built for everyone who came after. I did not disrespect her struggle, Savannah protested. You absolutely did, Al countered. When you suggest that someone is irrelevant just because they are not on TikTok or trending on Twitter, you are erasing their entire contribution to music history. You are saying that only what is popular right now matters, and that is just wrong. Savannah's hands were shaking slightly as she gripped her note cards. I think you are all overreacting. And I think you are underreacting, Hoda said. Do you understand what just happened? A music icon walked off our show because of how you treated her. That is going to be everywhere by tonight. Every news outlet, every social media platform. And not because she was difficult or unreasonable, but because you were. She could have handled it better, Savannah said weakly. How? Craig asked. How should she have handled being told she was outdated and irrelevant? Should she have just sat there and smiled while you degraded her career? I did not degrade her career. Yes, all three of her co-hosts said in unison. You did. The unified response seemed to finally break through Savannah's defenses. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and for the first time, she looked less angry and more uncertain. I was trying to have a real conversation, she said quietly, about ageism in the industry, about how streaming has changed everything, about... Then you should have framed it that way, Al interrupted gently. You should have made it a conversation with her, not an attack on her. You could have asked about her perspective on how the industry has changed. You could have asked how she feels about her influence on younger artists, but instead, you made her defend her entire existence. Hoda nodded. There were 1,000 ways to have that conversation respectfully. You chose none of them. Savannah looked down at her hands, and for a moment, she seemed smaller somehow, less sure of herself. I thought I was being provocative. You were being mean, Craig said simply. There is a difference. The silence that followed was heavy. Millions of viewers were watching this unfold, watching a host grapple with the consequences of her actions in real time, watching her co-hosts refuse to let her off the hook. What do I do now? Savannah finally asked, and the question sounded genuine, vulnerable even. You own it, Hoda said. You acknowledge that you were wrong. You apologize, sincerely, not because you have to, but because you should, and you learn from it. But she is already gone, Savannah said. She left. Then you apologize anyway, Al said. You apologize to her, to the viewers, to everyone who was hurt by what they just saw. You do not make excuses. You do not justify it. You just acknowledge that you messed up. Savannah looked at the camera, and for the first time since the interview started, her expression was unguarded. I do not know if I can do that right now. Then we will help you, Craig offered. But it needs to happen. Today. The conversation continued, raw and real. Nothing like the polished, cheerful content that morning show viewers were accustomed to. It was uncomfortable and awkward and completely unscripted, but it was also honest in a way that morning television rarely was. I think, Hoda said carefully, that we all need to think about how we treat our guests. Not just today, but every day. These are real people with real feelings and real accomplishments. They deserve our respect. Even when they are not currently on the charts, Al added. Even when they are not trending. Even when they represent a different era of music or entertainment. Maybe especially then. Craig nodded. Because those are the people who built the industry we cover. Those are the people who made it possible for all these new artists to exist. We owe them better. Savannah swallowed hard. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I owe her better. It was not quite an apology, not yet, but it was a start. A crack in the armor, an acknowledgement that perhaps, just perhaps, she had been wrong. Yes, Hoda said gently. You do. The show limped toward its conclusion, the remaining segments feeling hollow and strained. The energy that had been shattered by the confrontation never quite recovered, and through it all, the absence of Chaka Khan loomed large, a reminder of what had been lost, what had been broken in those few terrible minutes of television. When the show finally ended, when the cameras stopped rolling and the lights dimmed, Savannah remained at the desk, staring at nothing in particular. Her co-hosts gathered their things quietly. Hoda paused before leaving, placing a hand on Savannah's shoulder. I hope you really do learn from this, she said softly, because that woman deserved so much better than what you gave her. Then she too was gone, and Savannah sat alone on the empty set, surrounded by the wreckage of an interview gone catastrophically wrong, knowing that no explanation could undo the damage that had been done, knowing that Chaka Khan had walked out of that studio with her dignity and her legacy intact, while Savannah was left to face the consequences of forgetting that respect is not something you withhold from legends. It is something you offer freely, because it has already been earned.